We have 12 games left to change the current course and direction of our season. For some reason, even though we keep finding ourselves holding these L's every single week, we are still in a position technically, where we can still salvage the season, potentially secure a top 5 finish, and hopefully, fingers crossed, for God's sake, get CL football. Because honestly, for me, it feels like if we had access to CL football these last few years, it'd be making such a massive difference for us. It would make a difference in terms of securing a front of shirt sponsor. It'd help us secure better players. It would help us have more flexibility in our wage bill. You guys have to remember this, but when all our players signed their contracts with us, there were clauses that protected us from not having Champions League football, which means that if we don't have CO, every player actually earns less money than what they want to. That is the reality of the situation. So CL is important for everyone at this point in time. And all you can hope, fingers crossed, God willing, is that we can hopefully get a win against Southampton. So against Southampton tomorrow night, a team that is favourites or is incredibly likely to get relegated this season. If there was ever a time right now to just get 3 points to give the team a little booster before international break, this is it, man. We have 2 games coming up against relegation candidates. Leicester's the next one after international break. In between that, we have our 2 games against Copenhagen. You like to think that there's a potential to get 6 points, irrespective of the injury issues and the frailty in the squad right now. This is the key moment that could really salvage us before we take the game on to Arsenal. Now, that defeat against Villa near the end, that howler from a Jorgensen that was actually pretty decent, to be fair. But my fear is that when you actually put in the effort, put in the work rate, and still don't get a result, how do you find that confidence for the next game? And for me, this is why I am a bit apprehensive about Southampton, and I'm just hoping, praying, fingers crossed, that we have enough quality just to be able to take our moments. That's all we need to do right now. Southampton have their threats. I think Mateus Fernandes has been an exceptional young talent this season. Of course, you can't forget Sulemana, very tricky. Oniachu, a massive powerhouse of a striker. They have a few players that could cause us issues if we're not on point. So my friends, man, let's pray we can do something tomorrow night. Because in the preview right now, I'm going to break down the press conference, lineups, and my predictions. So I hope you guys are feeling a bit of something at least for the game. I'm going to let you guys know I'm not going to be going to the protest tomorrow. I've got no time. That's one of the annoying things about the timing of this. I'm going to Croatia. Obviously, I got my wedding stuff to plan there. I got some venues to look at. So yeah, the timing of things was never going to work. So you're going to see me in different scenery in these next few videos. But anyway, my friends, that's enough from me. Let's get into this preview. In terms of the press conference, my friends, we learned from Maresca that Trevor Chalobah is set to miss the next 7 to 10 days. So at least he should be back after international break. Calm, fair enough. Jorgensen will remain as the number 1. And it's actually nice to get like definitive clarity. Now, yes, he made a mistake. And to be honest, both these keepers have mistakes in them. It's really that fair. But my thing is, if Robert Sanchez can be given 5 strikes before he's out, then I'm sure that Jorgensen can earn a few more, right? Especially when he hasn't really played much. It's kind of normal that he'd be more likely to make a mistake. I'm sure he'll be very disappointed because he has made some top saves for us in the Conference League. And that mistake near the end, you like to think was just out of character for him. So let's hope that he does something because, you know what, I think he's actually better on the ball compared to Robert Sanchez for sure. Equally, we're not blessed with that elite goalkeeper, even though we spent numerous windows buying tons and tons of young guys for no one to be that undisputed number 1. So let's see what happens there. Maresca spoke about his respect for Southampton, which makes a lot of sense, basically. A lot of journalists were asking questions like, surely we're going to beat Southampton. Surely this is a game where we can stat pad goals because goal difference could be key for us to secure Champions League football, etc., etc. And you know what? Yeah, they are correct, but you have to apply this to the context of what's going on right now. And I don't think we're in any position right now where we can have full confidence that we can, target just destroying Southampton, but we can't finish any meal right now. where we constantly are making mistakes in both boxes, and it's costing us, and it's costing all the efforts we're showing. Against Villa, there was enough done in that game to potentially give us a 2-0 win, and if you get that, then of course anything can happen. But the other question is, why is it that we have to constantly find ourselves in positions where we need at least 2 goals to have a lead to give us a good chance of winning a game? That's also a big concern. I think that also summarizes the youth and experience in this team. You know, we do have by far the youngest squad age in the Premier League, and guys like Tosin and Sanchez are the oldest senior players on the field. That's a bit mad when you deep it. But as Enzo says, listen, we have 12 games left. That is the priority right now. Games like this can be a bit difficult. They can be a bit tricky. He believes that every game in the league is a tough game. I mentioned the fact that even teams like Man United, Southampton were leading right to the end before, of course, they messed things up. So we can't be getting too gassed, especially when I'm slightly apprehensive about what type of mental energy we're going to have for the Southampton game. Based on that last-minute defeat against Aston Villa, based on the fact that we've conceded yet again another defeat after securing a lead. Once upon a time, it was the other way round. We were conceding the leads first and then fighting to get back in the game. So it's worrying that when we have a lead, we're not able to really control things unless we have a second goal. To be fair, I was saying this after the 2-1 win against Brentford, where I noticed that Brentford all of a sudden stepped up the gears even more, had a lot of chances, could have maybe bagged an equaliser and got a result in this game. And if it wasn't for Nico getting the second goal at that time he did, I don't think we get a result, because Brentford made it 2-1 near the end. And since then, since that game actually, this has been the nature in which our games have been capitulating. We're constantly losing control. I've been saying we're not able to control like the intangibles, that 35%, which is like fighting for the duels, key tackles, off the ball work, even just having the experience to know when to slow the pace of the game down, when to speed it up. Those are the details that are costing us right now. Personally, I feel these reasons are due to the fact that the squad's thin and we can't keep the intensity off the ball for too long. But then equally on the other side, there are also interesting questions that can be posed towards Maresca. Because yes, we understand that the squad's not in his image, but equally there were certain players like Chukwuemeka and Renato Vega especially, where they weren't given any minutes. Vega was barely used, and when he was used, he clearly didn't like the position he was playing in. And Chukwuemeka was told for months on end. It was communicated to us directly that the manager had no plans for him, but he should be the guy that is the understudy to Enzo Maresca. He's the guy that can bring some ball carrying in midfield. There was enough quality that he's shown over the last few seasons to give us evidence that he could have helped us now. And I think those little details, listen, no one's infallible. These are some of the small criteria where Maresca can maybe, face a scrutiny for not maybe using the access to players that he had at times. Because I think of Vega and Chukwuemeka, I'm not saying that we have more points because of them, but there was a few more options that we could have been turning towards compared to seeing that bench we had against Aston Villa that was only full of youth players. Then to the final point, the convo is centered around Nkunku and most in particular Cole Palmer, who is having a bit of a dip of form. We can criticize that, but we have to have some perspective because he is probably our best player still. He's been very important for us, and I think everyone is allowed to have a dip in form. But I think one thing I've noticed is the lack of understanding between Nkunku and Palmer, which maybe makes a bit of sense. I feel like Palmer was so used to the particular direct movements of Nico Jackson, and Nkunku isn't that direct. He's more of a guy that withdraws himself into spaces. Like, you have to kind of be on his wavelength a little bit to clock where he wants the ball, where he wants to receive. And obviously, that can only really come with more access to minutes that these guys have together. I mean, Palmer and Nkunku have barely played any games throughout their entire career here. So, can I blame Palmer for maybe being a bit selfish against Villa? Yes or no? And can I blame Nkunku at times for, not showing that directness with his movements? Maybe it's a bit of both here. Maybe it takes two to tango. But Maresca, of course, is going to defend his best player. He's not going to put him on blast. That would be absolutely stupid. And basically reiterates the fact that, listen, he reflects the entire team. They're struggling right now. And the problem is that we rely upon him maybe a bit too much. But if anything, I could argue that maybe at times Maresca's setup for particular games has been too reliant on Cole Palmer having too much freedom. I think a lot of us have said at times, you know what? It'll be interesting to see Palmer drift to the right side again in that channel, to combine with like your Nonnies at the right winger, to let those guys run towards goal. You know why? Because it's a different threat you're creating in game. Whereas most opposition teams now are just thinking about, okay, if you contain Palmer or think about Palmer, that's the only thing that matters. So yeah, this is a very interesting part that could probably be its own separate video. But I think that's enough from the press conference. Let's now move on to the predicted lineup. I feel like the lineup is getting a bit simpler and simpler. Here's my lineup on screen, you guys. Up front, I'm continuing with Pedro Neto. I was very impressed by that tactical decision. It made so much sense because Pedro Neto has the pace in behind. He's a willing runner. It complements what we do. He was effervescent on the left channel, the right channel, making runs in behind. He brought a lot of threat, but most importantly, he was the one that allowed us to press up front. We could not do this against Brighton in both games when you're using either Palmer or Nkunku. So I rate Maresca for finding a bit of a short-term weapon for us up front. And hopefully Neto, I'd love to see this guy get a goal against Southampton because he had his moments against Aston Villa. In behind, I'm being a little bit ambitious. I've gone for Sancho on the left, Nkunku in the middle, and Cole Palmer down the right-hand side. I feel like this could be an interesting tweak I want to see against Southampton. I feel like we have to pick our battles very wisely now, and maybe it makes sense to prioritize getting goals again. It's funny because last season I communicated the same thing that Pochettino realized after a while, that, you know what, I have to dumb down what we're doing just so these guys can feel confident on the field, build an understanding together, and learn how to score. Because I think a lot of you man forgot that during the first half of the season when Poch was introducing these possession tactics and control and stuff like that, it was just way too much for a team that had only been recently assembled. And this is why we couldn't create anything in these types of games and struggled. And it was a shame because if we started the beginning of that first season stronger, we could have found the points we needed to get CL. But again, I don't want to get into that. I'm bringing up that point because maybe right now that's the perspective we need to have because we're not getting enough goals. And if anything, our key weapons in these next 4 games, Copenhagen twice, Leicester, and tomorrow against Southampton, it is going to be outscoring these teams, getting goals, and hopefully building whatever confidence, fingers crossed, God willing, against Arsenal, where that could be the decisive game. Where if you get a result against an Arsenal team that are looking a bit weak themselves, boom, new hope comes back into this season and the fight's back on. So I would like to see this type of lineup. Give a new threat with Cole Palmer out wide on the right-hand side instead, being that creative type of presence. He can still have the license to move infields when Gusto is making an overlap in behind. I think it really is that simple. This way, and Nkunku's withdrawal runnings, where he's like making those late arrivals in the books, maybe they are complemented and make a bit more sense. And of course, Jadon Sancho just has to perform. And again, we have no one down the left-hand side. So this is the attacking four I'm going for. In behind, Enzo, Moises, they speak for themselves because we have literally no one else to play there. I get a bit worried about Enzo's stamina. I felt for the guy against Villa. I mean, I thought he was good. I thought he was very strong. But yeah, you have to start him. And obviously, Dewsbury Hall comes on to be a sub. And of course, in defense, I think this defense is pretty simple. Cucurella, Levi Cole, Tosin. And I'm going for Malo Gusto because, again, Reece James, you need a guy like this for Arsenal. I can't afford to have Reece James breaking down anymore because, my God, I don't think my heart can handle that anymore, to keep things real with you guys. I think this defense just allows for Gusto to be the overlap, which he was giving us a threat against Aston Villa. And, of course, Tosin, Cole and Cucurella bringing that defensive support, and Jorgensen naturally and rightfully keeping his place in the lineup. Now, in last week's video, I got a bit of stick from you guys when I kind of guessed maybe Maresca might use Sanchez, even though I also said that, listen, if he didn't play, I'm not going to care because he's made too many mistakes right now. But it's an opportunity for young Jorgensen now to, learn what the Premier League and this level's really about. Not everything is going to be like sunshine and roses. You've got to have these types of moments where you have to build that mentality and confidence back. So, you know, hopefully we get that clean sheet against Southampton tomorrow. But yeah, like that's going to happen, right? So my friends, I'm going to end things in my prediction, and I'm going to have to be real. You know, as I said, we have to win. We have to win. I'm expecting to see that. If we don't, my lords, serious conversations need to be had. But I'm going to be going for a 3-1 win. I can't believe I'm saying this, but I just think that Southampton are so bad themselves that if we aren't able to punish them with goals, then I don't know what we're doing this season. So that's me, my friends. Hope you guys enjoyed. Share your thoughts and opinions on the game, and I'll see you guys later on with a news video. So stay tuned and cool.